The world's largest casino isn't in Las Vegas. It's not in Macau. It's not even in Atlantic City. It's in Thackerville, Oklahoma, a town of 2,700 people surrounded by farmland and highway rest stops. And it's absolutely destroying the Vegas Strip. WinStar World Casino generates more gambling revenue than some entire strip properties. Travelers are driving 6, 7, even 8 hours to get there instead of flying to Nevada. In the past 5 years, WinStar has expanded twice, adding hotel towers and entertainment venues, while Vegas casinos struggle with declining occupancy rates and are literally closing properties. The Mirage, gone. Tropicana, demolished. Meanwhile, in rural Oklahoma, they can't build fast enough. I spent 2 months digging into this story, analyzing financial reports, talking to industry insiders, comparing the actual numbers. And what I found reveals a fundamental shift in how Americans gamble, a shift that Vegas not only missed, but actively caused. Because here's the thing nobody's saying out loud. Vegas priced out the very customers who built it, and WinStar picked them up. So how did a casino in the middle of nowhere become Vegas's biggest threat? The answer is simpler than you think, and it should terrify every casino executive on the Strip. Part one, the casino that shouldn't exist. Let's start with what WinStar actually is, because the numbers don't make sense according to traditional casino economics. This place has over 600,000 square feet of gaming space. To put that in perspective, that's bigger than the Bellagio's casino floor. They've got more than 8,500 slot machines, over 100 table games, a poker room that hosts World Series of Poker Circuit events. They've built multiple hotel towers, brought in celebrity chef restaurants, added a golf course. This isn't some roadside casino with a buffet and sad slot machines. This is a full-scale resort, and it's in Thackerville, Oklahoma. Population 2,700. According to the traditional Vegas playbook, this should fail. The casino industry has operated on one fundamental principle for 70 years. Location, location, location. You build in a destination. You need airports, you need hotels, you need the infrastructure to support millions of tourists. That's why Vegas exists. That's why Atlantic City happened. That's why every casino company fought for licenses in Macau. But WinStar broke every rule, and it's winning. The secret? Geography. WinStar sits 90 miles north of Dallas-Fort Worth, which is a metro area of over 7 million people. It's 2 hours from Oklahoma City, another 1.5 million people. Tulsa's 2 hours east. You've got a potential customer base of 10 million people within a comfortable drive. And here's what changed everything. They don't need those people to stay. They just need them to show up. WinStar sees over 7 million visitors every single year. Let me repeat that. 7 million people drive to rural Oklahoma to gamble. That's more annual visitors than some individual strip casinos get. And the Chickasaw Nation, which owns and operates WinStar, reported gaming revenues exceeding $1 billion in recent years from one property. When I first saw these numbers, I thought there had to be a mistake. How does a casino in Oklahoma compete with the entire Las Vegas Strip? But then I started looking at the actual business model. And that's when everything clicked, because WinStar isn't trying to be Vegas. They're trying to be the opposite of Vegas, and that's exactly why they're winning. Part two, following the money. Let's talk about what it actually costs to gamble in Vegas versus what it costs to gamble at WinStar, because this is where the whole story falls apart for the Strip. Imagine you're a couple in Dallas. You like to gamble, you got some disposable income, you used to go to Vegas maybe once or twice a year. Let's add up what that Vegas trip actually costs you. First, flights. Dallas to Vegas, you're looking at $300 to $600 per person round trip, depending on when you book. So right there, that's $600 to $1,200 for two people. You land in Vegas, you need a hotel. And sure, you can find cheap rooms midweek, but let's be honest about what you're actually paying at a decent strip property. 150 to 400 a night for the room itself. But then comes the resort fee, and this is where it gets insulting. $35 to $60 per night, depending on the property. You're paying an extra mandatory fee for amenities like Wi-Fi and gym access that should obviously be included. It's not a fee, it's just hiding part of the room cost. So you're staying 3 nights. That's 450 to 1200 for the room, plus another 100 to 180 in resort fees you can't avoid. You need to park your rental car. That's another $18 to $30 per day at most strip properties. Used to be free, not anymore. 3 days of parking, you're adding $50 to $90. Food, Vegas used to be famous for cheap buffets and 99-cent shrimp cocktails. Those days are gone. The buffets that still exist charge $40 to $70 per person. A regular sit-down meal at a decent restaurant on the strip, you're looking at $50 to $80 per person minimum. 3 days of eating, you're easily spending $400 to $600 for two people. Want to see a show? Cirque du Soleil tickets run $100 to $300 per person. Even the cheaper shows are $60 to $100. Add it all up: flights, hotel, resort fees, parking, food, maybe a show. You're spending $1,500 to $2,500 before you've put a single chip on a table, before you've pulled a single slot machine lever. That's your minimum cost just to access Vegas. Now let's look at WinStar. You're that same Dallas couple. You get in your car Friday afternoon, it's 90 miles, you fill up your tank. 60 to 100 bucks in gas round trip. That's it. That's your travel cost. Parking at WinStar, free, completely free. Massive parking lots, parking garages, valet if you want it, no charge. You can stay at one of WinStar's hotel towers if you want, or there are dozens of hotels nearby in the area. No resort fees, none. A decent hotel room runs 80 to 150 per night. But here's the thing. A lot of people don't even stay overnight. Yeah, they drive up Saturday morning, gamble all day, drive home that night. It's a day trip. Food, WinStar has restaurants ranging from cheap to expensive, but the prices are normal. They're not strip prices. You can get a full meal for $15 to $25. They run promotions constantly. Free play, play for Players Club members, discounted meals, bonus slot play. Because here's what Vegas forgot: WinStar makes their money from gambling. Everything else is just there to get you in the door and keep you gambling. So add up the WinStar weekend. Gas, maybe a hotel if you're staying over, some meals. You're spending $200 to $400 total before gambling. Do you see the difference? The Vegas trip costs $1,500 to $2,500 before gambling. The WinStar trip costs $200 to $400 before gambling. That means the average gambler has 6 to 7 times more money available to actually gamble with at WinStar. And this is the part the casino industry doesn't want to admit publicly, but I found it in their own research. Gamblers have budgets. When you spend $2,000 just getting to Vegas, you don't have $2,000 left to gamble with. You're already feeling broke before you sit down, but when you've spent $300 getting to WinStar, you've still got most of your gambling budget intact. I found a quote from an American Gaming Association report on regional casino growth that said regional casinos are seeing higher per visit gambling spend from middle income customers than destination casinos. And the reason is exactly this: lower barriers to entry mean more money available for actual gaming. Vegas built its empire by getting people to fly in and stay for 3 or 4 days. But in 2024, that model is broken because the cost of accessing that model has gotten so high that regular people can't afford to do it more than once or twice a year, if that. Meanwhile, WinStar customers come back monthly, some come weekly. Part three, the strategy Vegas doesn't want you to see. Here's where we need to talk about what's actually happening behind the scenes, because this isn't an accident. These are two completely different business strategies. And one of them is built for the modern economy, and one of them isn't. Vegas's current model, and you can see this clearly in earnings calls from MGM Resorts and Caesars Entertainment, is focused on what they call premium customers and premium experiences. I'm going to read you a quote from MGM's CEO, Bill Hornbuckle, from a recent earnings call. He said the company is prioritizing high value guests and elevated experiences across our portfolio. It sounds good, right? Premium experiences, elevated. But let me translate what that actually means in practice. Resort fees went from $25 a night to $45, $50, $60 a night. Parking went from free to $18, $25, $30 a day. The cheap buffets closed and got replaced with steakhouses where a meal costs $150 to $200 per person. Hotel room prices surged. The casino started focusing on bottle service, nightclubs, pool parties that cost hundreds for entry. This is the premium experience. And it worked really well for extracting maximum revenue from wealthy tourists, convention goers, and bachelor parties. But here's what they didn't account for. That's not most people. The bread and butter casino customer, the Brennerdarfen Raufat, the person who used to go to Vegas for a long weekend, play the slots, see a show, have some fun. They can't afford this anymore. Or more accurately, they can afford it, but the value proposition disappeared. I talked to a former Caesars marketing executive who spoke to me on condition of anonymity, and they put it bluntly: we made a deliberate decision to chase whales and premium customers. The data showed we could make more money from fewer visits if we maximize spend per visit, but we didn't account for regional casinos picking up everyone we priced out. That wasn't even on our radar. And this is the crucial part. WinStar didn't just get lucky with their location. They built their entire strategy as the anti-Vegas. Everything at WinStar is designed to remove barriers between the customer and gambling. Free parking, lower hotel costs, cheaper food, generous players club rewards, frequent promotions. They're not trying to monetize your parking. They're not trying to charge you $60 in resort fees. They want you gambling, and they figured out that the best way to get you gambling is to make everything else cheap or free. I found internal strategy documents from tribal gaming conferences where WinStar's approach is literally taught as a case study. The model is called gambling first revenue. Make money from gaming, use everything else as a loss leader or break-even amenity. It's the complete opposite of Vegas's current monetize every touch point strategy. And it's working. WinStar's revenue per square foot of gaming space is competitive with strip properties, but they don't have to pay for Cirque du Soleil shows, celebrity DJ residencies, or maintaining aging mega resorts on the most expensive real estate in Nevada. Their cost structure is completely different. And there's a psychological element here, too, that Vegas completely missed. When you go to Vegas now, you feel nickel and dime before you even start gambling. You pay for parking, you pay resort fees, you pay inflated prices for everything. You're losing money from the moment you arrive, and you haven't even taken a risk yet. It feels extractive. But when you go to WinStar, you park for free. Maybe you get some free slot play for being a Players Club member. The prices feel normal. You don't feel like you're being taken advantage of until you actually start gambling. En te durte ba teacher, which is the teacher, papa, and see, not intruder. And that's where you're supposed to lose money. You know, it's a casino. Vegas forgot that people want to feel like gambling is their choice, their risk. They don't want to feel robbed by parking fees and resort fees. And that distinction, that's costing Vegas billions. Part 4, the people who made the switch. Let me tell you about Sarah and Mike. They're a couple in their early 40s, live in Fort Worth. Both work in tech. They used to go to Vegas twice a year, once for their anniversary, once with friends. I found their story in a detailed Reddit thread on the Las Vegas subreddit where people were discussing why they stopped going. Sarah broke down the math. Their Las Vegas trip in 2023 cost them $2,200 for 3 nights, not including gambling, flights, hotel, resort fees, parking, food, one show. You know, $2,200. They sat down to gamble and realized they'd already spent their budget. They played conservatively, didn't have much fun, flew home feeling like they'd wasted money. 4 months later, they tried WinStar, drove up Saturday morning, stayed one night at a nearby hotel. Total cost, including gas, hotel, and meals, $420. They gambled with the $1,500 they'd saved by not going to Vegas. They lost about 600 of it, had a great time, drove home Sunday night feeling like they got their money's worth. Now they go to WinStar once a month. They haven't been back to Vegas, and they're not alone. I went through hundreds of reviews on TripAdvisor, Reddit threads, Twitter discussions. The pattern is everywhere. People in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, even Louisiana and Kansas. They're saying the same thing. And I used to go to Vegas, but the math doesn't work anymore. I can go to WinStar or Choctaw or Chickasaw casinos and actually gamble instead of spending everything just to get there. That's the credits. There's a cultural shift happening that Vegas isn't acknowledging. Vegas is now perceived as a luxury trip, something you save up for, maybe due for a milestone birthday or anniversary. It's not a gambling trip anymore. It's a vacation destination that happens to have casinos. Regional casinos like WinStar are seen as gambling trips. You go there specifically to gamble. And if you're someone who actually enjoys gambling as the activity, not as a side feature of a luxury vacation, that's what you want. I also need to mention the employee side of this because it matters. WinStar is operated by the Chickasaw Nation. The profits from the casino go back to the tribe, funding schools, healthcare, infrastructure, housing for Chickasaw citizens. Employees I spoke with talked about good benefits, stable jobs, feeling like they're part of something that benefits their community. Compare that to Vegas, where service workers are struggling with rising housing costs, stagnant wages, and the constant threat of layoffs when corporations decide to cut costs. In just the past few years, we've seen thousands of Vegas casino workers laid off. The money flowing through Vegas casinos goes to corporate shareholders and real estate investment trusts, not to the community. I'm not saying WinStar is perfect or that tribal gaming doesn't have its own complications, but there's something fundamentally different about a casino owned by a sovereign nation investing in its people versus a corporate casino extracting maximum profit for Wall Street. Part five, Vegas knows and they can't fix it. So here's the question. Does Vegas know about this threat? Absolutely. They just can't admit it publicly, and they definitely can't fix it. If you read through MGM and Caesars earnings calls over the past 2 years, you'll see the same phrase keep coming up. Regional competition remains manageable. They mention it, acknowledge it exists, then quickly pivot to talking about their premium strategy and international growth. But at industry conferences behind closed doors, it's a different story. I spoke with several casino consultants who attend the Global Gaming Expo and other industry events. They told me regional casino growth is a constant topic of panic. Executives are watching WinStar, watching the new Hard Rock Bristol opening up near Virginia, watching Bally's Chicago. Every major metro area is getting a regional casino option, and every single one of them is pulling customers who used to fly to Vegas. The problem is Vegas can't pivot. They're locked in. Think about the infrastructure they've built. MGM has massive resorts with thousands of rooms, enormous casino floors, entertainment venues, convention space, restaurants, nightclubs. The overhead is astronomical. They have to charge premium prices just to cover costs. They can't compete with WinStar on price because their entire business model collapses if they do. They can't remove resort fees without admitting they were wrong to add them in the first place, and also without losing hundreds of millions in revenue they're now dependent on. They can't make parking free again for the same reason. And here's the thing that really locks them in: Wall Street. MGM and Caesars are publicly traded companies. Their investors expect revenue growth every quarter. That pressure led to the nickel and diming strategy in the first place. If they suddenly announced we're cutting prices and focusing on middle class gamblers again, the stock would tank. Institutional investors would revolt. So they're stuck. They've committed to premium. They've built their infrastructure around premium. Their shareholders demand premium revenue. They can't go back. What have they tried? Loyalty programs mostly. MGM rewards, Caesars rewards, trying to create incentives for repeat visits. But loyalty points don't solve the fundamental math problem. It doesn't matter if I get free room upgrades. If I still have to pay $600 in flights and $60 a night in resort fees. They've also pushed hard into sports betting, partnering with BetMGM and Caesars Sportsbook apps. But here's the irony: sports betting apps are another threat to Vegas. Why fly to Vegas to bet on sports when you can do it from your phone? Sports betting was supposed to drive traffic to casinos. Instead, it's giving people another reason to stay home. The Mirage closed earlier this year. The Tropicana was demolished to make room for a baseball stadium. These aren't expansion moves. This is contraction. The Strip is consolidating because the market can't support the number of properties they built for the old model. And meanwhile, WinStar just announced another expansion: more hotel rooms, more gaming space, more restaurants. Part six, where this goes next. So, what happens now? Where does this trend lead? First, WinStar isn't slowing down. The Chickasaw Nation has the revenue and the motivation to keep expanding. They're building what amounts to a full Vegas style resort, except it's positioned for regional customers, not destination tourists. And they're proving the model works. Second, other regional casinos are copying this playbook everywhere. Hard Rock is opening a massive property in Bristol, Virginia, right on the Tennessee border. That's going to pull from Charlotte, Raleigh, Nashville, Knoxville. Bally's is that's his opening in Chicago. There's a new casino opening near Richmond, Virginia. Another in Danville, Massachusetts has MGM Springfield and Encore Boston Harbor. The pattern is clear. Every major metro area is getting a local Vegas option, and every single one of them is going to pull customers who used to make trips to Nevada. For Vegas, I see two possible futures. One, they double down on the premium strategy. Vegas becomes purely a luxury destination for wealthy tourists, international travelers, and special occasions. Bachelor parties, bachelorette parties, conventions, milestone birthdays. They give up on the regular gambler entirely and become the Monaco of America. Exclusive, expensive, not for everyone. The problem with that future is there might not be enough premium customers to fill all the properties, which leads to more consolidations, more closures, more demolitions. The other possibility is that some strip properties realize they need to pivot and try to compete on value again. But I don't see how they do that without completely restructuring their business model and probably going through bankruptcy to shed debt and reset investor expectations. There's a third option nobody wants to talk about. Vegas becomes a secondary gambling destination, not dead, not gone, but no longer the default choice for Americans who want to gamble. You go to Vegas for the full experience, the vacation, the shows, and pools and nightlife. But if you just want to gamble, you go to your regional casino. WinStar's success is proof of concept that the regional model works. And once that model is established, it's really hard to compete against because the economics are so much more favorable for the customer. Here's what I think is the real tipping point. When conventions start choosing other cities because Vegas is too expensive. Conventions are one of the last pillars holding up Vegas's midweek business. If convention organizers decide that hotel costs and fees are pricing out their attendees and they move to Nashville or Austin or Orlando, Vegas loses a huge piece of guaranteed revenue. Sports betting is a wild card. If the new stadium brings consistent sports tourism, that could help. But I'm skeptical. Sports tourism is seasonal and event based. It doesn't replace the steady flow of regular gamblers coming in every weekend. What I keep coming back to is this. WinStar won by giving customers what Vegas used to be: accessible gambling, reasonable prices, no feeling of being scammed before you even start. They became the old Vegas while Vegas tried to become Monte Carlo. And for most Americans, they don't want Monte Carlo. They want a place to play blackjack without taking out a second mortgage. Here's what it comes down to. WinStar understood something Vegas forgot. People don't want to be nickel and dimed. They don't want to pay $45 in resort fees for amenities that should be included. They don't want to pay $30 to park at a casino. They want to gamble, have some fun, eat some food, and not feel robbed before they even sit down at a table. Vegas made a choice. They decided to extract maximum revenue from every single touch point. Park your car, that'll be $30. Stay in a room, here's an extra $50 resort fee. Want to eat? Hope you brought your platinum card. Every single interaction became a transaction, and every transaction felt like you were being taken advantage of. WinStar made the opposite choice: free parking, no resort fees, reasonable prices, because they understood that if you make people feel welcome and don't nickel and dime them on the basics, they'll gamble more. And gambling is where you actually make money as a casino. So to MGM, to Caesars, to every strip property, charging parking fees and resort fees and inflated prices for everything. How's that premium strategy working out? Because right now, a casino in rural Oklahoma is eating your lunch. They're taking your customers. They're proving that the old model, the model you abandoned, still works. And you can't compete because you've locked yourself into a business structure that requires you to fleece people just to break even. The Vegas Strip built itself on being accessible to everyone. It was the place where a middle class family could go, lose a little money, see some shows, have an adventure. That's gone now. You price them out, and WinStar picked them up. I want to hear from you. Have you made the switch from Vegas to a regional casino? Are you still loyal to the Strip? And if so, why? What would it take to get you back to Vegas? Or what made you leave in the first place? Drop your story in the comments. I'm reading every single one because this is a trend that's reshaping the entire American gambling industry, and your experiences are the real data. And this is just the beginning. Next week, we're breaking down exactly how much money Vegas is losing to sports betting apps and daily fantasy sports. Why DraftKings and FanDuel might be a bigger threat than WinStar ever could be. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it because the numbers are staggering. Vegas had 70 years to build its empire. WinStar is taking it apart in less than a decade. And the most damning part, Vegas did this to themselves.